We are
Didi
and Arma, and in our daily lives we support people on the path of self-liberation. We teach time-tested energy skills like Qigong, Tai Chi, internal alchemy, traditional nutrition and meditation.
We help people release stagnation, build energy, and become aligned with themselves and their purpose in life.
In this podcast we share the methods, skills and solutions that helped us, our students and now hopefully you move forward.
Let's explore transformation together. Yeah.
And today we're having a podcast about
The 5 elements.
the 5 elements.
Yeah.
So
it's one of my favorite subjects to talk about.
people, she can talk about this the whole day. Yeah, no problem.
No problem. Yeah. And whenever we have something or a situation, I always get 5 elements in to explain things. So yeah, it's
Such a beautiful
great system.
It's a system, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's a way to view
Yeah. To
everything, really.
it always helps to give an explanation.
Sure. Yeah.
And so maybe that's good to have a look at what are the 5 elements.
Yeah, that's a good place to start today, I think. It's just an explanation
Yeah.
about what they are
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what they represent and,
Yeah.
of course, how we can use them for our own benefit.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So the 5 elements, I always talk about 5-element food or 5-element herbs. And the 5 elements that I'm talking about are related to the 5 elements of the traditional Chinese medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we see a lot of use of elements in other, what you were doing with...
Elements are everywhere, right? I mean,
yeah.
they're in the Western culture, they're in the Eastern
Exactly.
culture. But these 5 elements we're talking about are the 5 elements related to more the Chinese and the Taoist view.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
And why do we use these? Is because the Chinese have made a great way of putting it into writing, and they have been studying nature for
Millennium.
thousands of years.
Yeah, it's like thousands and thousands of years,
Yeah.
literally. Yeah.
So every time when I look at 5 elements, I think, oh my God, they haven't thought about this. And then I dive in a little deeper and I think, oh yeah, they did.
It's not like they took 5 minutes to come up with the 5 elements.
It's thousands years, and they documented everything.
Everything, nature, change, the stars, the universe, what they could explain about seasons, about everything.
Everything. So 5 elements is a system, which is so important. You always want to work with a system, so you can get back to your system to explain about things.
And hopefully it will help you to come up with not only that it's an explanation, but also that it can help you move on or get insight where you're stuck or...
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the 5 elements, they represent change, or they explain the phases of change.
A process.
What process, where you go through when you're... Well, it's like they represent the seasons. Where do you go through? And it's going through life.
Yeah.
You're born and you go through childhood, adulthood, later adulthood, and
then
at
you become
the
an
end,
elderly person, and
then you die and be reborn again.
So it's a cycle.
Cycle
It's a
of
cycle.
life, cycle of seasons. It's even the cycle of breathing,
of a day,
of a month, the moon cyclus.
or where a company goes through, or it's like
Every process you can get back into the 5 elements. And why is this? It's the behavior of everything around you.
Everything is a movement. There's nothing that's still.
No.
Right? And that's a thing it's sort of mind-blowing when you think about it. It's like everything goes through a cycle.
Yeah.
We go through a cycle. Every part of us goes through a cycle. Everything comes and it goes. And some things take a long time before they go. Yeah. Like the sun or a diamond, or
planets,
but these are also going through their own cycle. Yeah.
The whole universe.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Oh,
I love this stuff.
Wow, it's so it's almost too big to understand, and then still people have tried to understand and make it understandable for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's and if you want to understand yourself, it's awesome.
Absolutely. So, what do they say? And it's good. We have the Chi Skills podcast, and Chi is where it all starts with. It's all, well, as we translate, we mostly translate it with energy.
Mm-hmm. But it's the electromagnetic interaction, which is, everything in the universe is made up of this vibration, right? Yeah. On all these different billions and billions of different frequencies. And that's where it all starts, with this positive, negative, this plus, minus, which goes like this, electromagnetic. And from solid to thoughts to electricity through the Wi-Fi, everything
has a frequency.
Yeah. And you could say life force is what's it is like the common denominator. It's what's in all these things. It's life, right?
Yeah.
And then if we look at the interaction between the yin and the yang, as we can call, the minus and the plus, what are ways that energy behaves? And when you look at that, the Chinese were very clever. They say, okay, this interaction, there's like 5 main categories how this energy behaves in the universe, in our own little universe. And the interaction between these 5, the yang, now the 5 elements, makes up, that's so funny. They say it makes up the 10,000 things.
Yeah.
And I think when they sort of came to this conclusion, 10,000 was like a huge number.
For them at the time.
Yeah. But this 10,000 represents everything, of course. So the interaction between the ways that energy behaves, like expanding or contracting or dividing or penetrating or sinking, which are the 5 elements. And we're going deeper into the names of the elements, of course, right? But this interaction makes up everything, and it brings it back to understandable level. And I think that's what it is, because it's as far as we come to understand something that we never can completely understand, I guess, but because there's still this mystery, right?
Yeah, there's so much magic around us, but in a modern way, we also try to explain. That's why
we always want to explain.
Yeah.
We want to comprehend, and we want to have an understanding. And
and I think what we use yin and yang for in, like, with food, and is we mainly in food is coldness, which is more yin, and yang is the opposite direction, is the hot, so hot and cold.
Yeah.
And you have all these differences in between, but
those are the extremes.
You would say.
The yin and the yang, right? Yeah.
Well, we all know the symbol of yin and yang.
We do, yeah.
And there's a movement in there. It's not a set picture. It actually represents movement in between these two. That even when there is the most yin part, still can turn to yang.
Yeah.
There is already a little bit like when the days go by. I mean, in the darkest of the night, you can almost feel that the morning is coming. Morning is coming, and the light almost comes through. And we're in winter time now, so you feel that you're going over something, and when you're the deepest into winter, which is at
we
the
are
moment,
now,
you can still feel the promise of spring coming.
Well, I heard a bird this morning. It was like,
yeah.
and I'm like, wow, it's like, what's the 5th of January, 4th of January?
Yeah.
And then, wow, it's like, I hear spring.
Yeah, and we're so longing for that what's coming as well. So,
yeah. So this yin yang, I mean, we could do 500 podcasts on only yin and yang. So for the sake of this one,
well,
it might be good to go into the
because just the overview is that in the 5 elements there is so much, and what I use it for is to analyze people. Is when they come in, I analyze them through the 5 elements and see where is the disbalance. But also the 5 elements will have given me a system to categorize all my foods and all my herbs.
Okay, yeah.
So just to give an overview.
Yeah,
how it works for me.
So you can look at the disbalances for the person themselves, because it's also related to the temperature, but also maybe there's skin problems or something. The skin and the skin belongs to an element, and then you have the tastes. And then you have all these things and the categories of the foods that belong to a certain element, and that you can use to fine tune and get a person or yourself
more in balance. Yeah. So that's what we started with. It's a system. We can categorize things, not to pull them apart, but to see how we can intervene to create more balance in the whole system.
So you can stimulate some elements by maybe, starting with one and then going in a way that you can, how you say it? You can sort of almost manipulate another element through other elements because they're all interrelated, right?
Absolutely.
And
that's the beauty. Yeah. So, let's dive a little deeper. What you said into 5 elements. So, what elements do you have in traditional Chinese medicine? Well, let's start with the earth element.
Yeah, and why do you start with earth element?
Because I think it's the most important.
I know this, of course.
But earth element is for the digestion, and it's in the. I always love this story in traditional Chinese medicine. You have all these doctors, you have people, the acupuncturists, you have the herbal persons or doctors, and but the most important in the older days, I don't know if it's true, but this is the story you hear, is that the one who is about food, who teaches people about what they have to eat, is the most important one.
Yeah,
he is the most well paid doctor. That's why I did this. It's not nowadays.
Where's my Porsche?
Yeah,
I don't see a Porsche.
It's not in these days. Food is coming way behind. But if you really look at it, the earth element is the one element that is in the middle of everything. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know where to start with earth element, because it's so the basics of all the other elements.
Yeah.
It supports the others. And of course they all interact, but this is one.
You have to start somewhere in a cycle, right? And you have to step in. So then earth element is fantastic if you want to work on your health. All these related problems. Yeah.
That was it? No.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
Work on your earth element.
Yeah.
You're
earth.
Done.
So we start with earth, and then we have the metal element. So it's a cycle. So you have earth element, underneath is metal, and then you go into water element. And then from water you go into wood, and up till fire. And fire goes back into earth element.
And then the cycle is done.
And then the cycle is done. And then you see all the seasons going through and you think, oh, there are 4 seasons. Well, you see that earth element is the element of the after summer. It's the season where everything that has grown all summer you can collect, and it's the abundance. It's the season of
Is it the
abundance.
harvest also?
Harvest time. Yeah. I was looking for that word, but so it's and then the other elements represent the other seasons, of course.
Yeah.
But what does this element stand for? It's not just digestion. It's also, it represents concentration. And can you learn well? And if there is a disbalance, you might have problems
concentrating or picking up information.
And actually, if you have a close look at it, everything that goes through your system has to be digested.
Sure.
So also
thoughts, emotions,
all the information, everything that comes from the outside in, you want to digest.
Yeah.
And not just the food that you eat, but all the information that you get, all the emotions, etc., etc.
Sure. And concentration is, of course, huge. I think that it represents one of the main, qualities we can have as a human, that we have as a human being. It's our ability to concentrate, right? Focus.
So you see that the organs. So you see we have a very physical side on the element, which are the stomach and the spleen, which are, of course, the most important organs for your digestion.
Yeah, and that's funny because they represent like the pot. The stomach is the pot where the food comes in. It's and the spleen represents the fire underneath the pot, which is beautiful. I think it's such a beautiful thing to. To picture in your mind. It's like, okay, okay. What can we do to sustain the fire? And what can we do to, how do we get as good the energy out of the food that's in the pot? And
And it's so, if you talk about it, I used to have a great disbalance on earth elements. It's probably why I started all this search for good food for me. Because I was always cold. I was slow. I didn't have much energy. And it was actually, I think in my 30s that this was on a point that I was like, my menstruation cycle wasn't going too well.
You were cold.
I was
on the
really,
touch,
really cold. Yeah.
Cold hands, cold feet.
Going in, you certainly knew when I went to bed. Very cold. And it all had to do with me eating not the food that was good for me. But it also had an effect on how I could study, how I could concentrate, how
decision
I
making.
live my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so cool that you can you find this system and then you see, of course. If you look at the foods that you were eating and things like that.
And if you look at that stomach and spleen, which you beautifully described like a pot and a fire, as I've told many times before in other videos, is that I was eating yogurt in the morning. Yeah. Well, now you have a fire, which is the spleen, and the stomach. Well, the stomach doesn't matter. But you put something really cold into your stomach.
And what happens with the fire?
And what happens with the fire? Well, that fire needs to burn up even more to do something with that yogurt.
Yeah.
And then, your body is like cooling off.
Totally. Yeah.
So when I started to eat warm breakfast, that was a revelation.
Oh, yeah.
It felt so much better. And within months, I could feel my temperature. Well, I was really, really cold. So it took me a while. Yeah. But in months, there was like a huge difference.
It's a yin and yang difference.
And I could see it on so many different things in my body. So before I knew about this system, I was like, I couldn't relate the things together.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't see the big picture, right? It's like, okay, I have my breakfast, but then all the problems you had, which were normal for you, which is also a thing. You're so used to it that you're like, oh, this is who I am.
And so many of my girlfriends, they say, oh, I always have cold feet, cold hands. So
it's normal.
It's like a normal thing.
Yeah.
And to have menstruation problems, well, we look for a solution outside ourselves. So you might take like a birth control pill or hormones, or you look for different ways to get on the other side of the problem, and not the start of the problem, not the core, right. But we find solutions on the other side. And you see that with so many people that if you go to a doctor, they find a solution for the problem.
I have a great anecdote about that, because I was exactly the opposite of you, right? I was just doing everything to boost this fire.
Yeah.
Right? So I had at a certain point, I think it was like maybe 10 years ago or something, I started getting pretty severe rashes around my mouth and back of my head. And in this time I was training with my first teacher, Roel Jansen, which was more traditional Kung Fu. And I would come into the class and I would just do my thing. And then it was long trainings, right? It was like 3 hours or something. And the first part was always do your own thing, you just do the movements and everything. So I was doing that, and then he's in the corner with another student. He was like a sort of whispering and pointing to me. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And he said, oh, come here. He said, are you eating like a lot of sugar, or are you eating lots of meat, or are you, because, you have this rash and, it might be your food. And I'm like, wow, because I knew I had this problem. And I went to see a regular doctor, and he said, okay, I have this lotion for you, put it on every day and it will go away. And the funny thing, in the beginning it did. Yeah. It just disappeared, right? And then it started not disappearing. So I went back and he's like, well, go see the skin doctor. So I was this was my regular doctor, and I went to the specialist. And it was convenient because it was on the opposite of the square, right? It was just like 20 yards from.
You were not the only one with the problem.
No. He was like, okay, go see my fellow colleague. And this woman said, well, you have this and that. And in Dutch it's called rosacea. It's like, well, it happens to people. And I have this cream. And you have to put on this cream every day. And it will go away. And in the beginning it did. Yeah. Same thing. It was another. The one was a lotion. There was a cream. But then I said, well, I had some questions. Well, how long do I have to take it? She said, probably your whole life. Yeah. And I'm like, what? So fast forward back to this moment that this guy is saying to me, my teacher is saying to me, it's like, it's probably diet related. Yeah. He was studying Chinese medicine at that moment, right? Not the food part, but he was. He was reading about it, 5 elements and things like that. And he was studying acupuncture. And he was like, well, you have to look out with that. And so I stopped with the sugar. And I stopped with a couple of other things. And it just went away. It went away. So you have on the one part, someone is trying to attack the symptom. Yeah. And the other person is saying, so, okay, what are you eating every day that's causing these problems? So... so that was a revelation, and and now I know if I have a little bit of sugar, I try to avoid it as much as I can. But if you have like the Christmas and things like that,
I was gonna say,
then it's very hard. It's very hard. So sometimes, but I see it immediately. It comes immediately back, and then when I take a break from it again, and it goes away, and I'm fine. So it's a long anecdote, but it's I think very relatable for a lot of people, probably.
Very relatable, and I think it's something that a lot of people they don't really see the big picture, because we don't learn that in school. But if you start to see the big picture, you understand yourself so much better.
You understand the cause, right? And if you look at the 5 elements, there's a cause and an effect, because the cause is in maybe one element, and then it attacks another element, or it moves into another element, and then you see, okay, so instead of, you can have a solution by knowing where the cause is. It sounds so simple, right? It's like, of course. Yeah. But why doesn't the Western medicine work like that?
It's
at all.
It's mostly, when you go to a doctor, it seems that, it's just unfortunate that you got it. It's not something they see, you did this or that, or...
No, okay, this is the problem. These are the symptoms, and we're going to attack these symptoms, and maybe we have to suppress the symptoms even, and not looking for what's underneath, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just such beautiful to understand yourself better, and it's also what I see with a lot of my clients. Sometimes they have all these different symptoms, and they think I'm a magician if they call some things that they dealing with, and then I can then I have a whole list, especially the wood element. Wood element is one of those elements that that cause a lot of problems in the body, because it's related to stress. Yeah?
The liver and the gallbladder.
It's when there is stress on the body, you probably get a lot of wood-related issues.
And symptoms, and
But for a lot of people, these are all separate things.
Yeah.
So they go to a doctor for maybe they feel very depressed, or they have some problems with how do you call that? Like a sound in their ears.
Yeah, like this high
sound
high
in their
sound,
ears, or in their eyes. There's like these little black things. It's all liver related. If you don't know it, you think, "Oh my God, I'm falling apart," and they come to see me, and then I say, "Oh, you have this as well," and maybe some menstruation problems, because liver is also for a good flow in the body. So if for a lot of women, if there is a lot of stress on the body, then you see that instantly in your period.
Yeah.
So talking about it, and then they see, there is a solution to work with this liver, or work with the wood element, and then we have a solution for all these problems.
Yeah.
And not just the one thing that I want to work on, but for the whole thing.
Exactly. We have a system. We have a way to make things very logic.
Yeah.
And a way to solve things. So in future podcasts, we will be going through the elements, right?
Yeah.
One by one.
Next one, because we're so into winter time, we're going to talk about the water element, which is great.
Represents winter.
This is the element of dying, but also rebirth. And you see winter, or the water element at the moment, is so represented everywhere in the world,
especially in these times with the corona.
And so where are you? Are you coming along, or are you stuck?
Are you making a spiritual shift now?
So it's a beautiful element, and we're gonna dive deeper in, and
we're gonna have lots of fun doing it. So today was like a sort of introduction. I mean, it's not going too deep yet, but I think people have a bit of an understanding that there is something like a system that can help. That the earth element is related to the digestion, and that's a great place to start. So this was also a great way to start. So
it's one of my favorite subjects. So
I'm fascinated with it too. Absolutely. It's
so
just,
if any questions, please
ask,
and we'll be back.
We'll be back.
So
take care.
Everyone.
Bye.